Arsenio, we got Sanjay on the line. What do you want to ask him?
The challenges that you have as far as like being a capital raiser. What are some of those challenges that you had? And would you like to share any wins that you had with those challenges?
I would say the challenges are growing the thought leadership platform
Mhm.
and then creating that influence. I mean, there's always going to be, you talked about challenges. There's always going to be people who say they want to invest and at the end they don't. And then you've got this gap. That's just a given. That's just part of
Yeah.
the industry.
I'm Brian Briscoe, host of the Diary of an Apartment Investor podcast. And this podcast is different than everything else out there. I bring together a new and an experienced investor on each episode, and I let the aspiring investor ask the questions that they need answered. So if you're an aspiring investor yourself, you probably will have the exact same questions. Now, before we get to this episode, make sure you hit the subscribe button below and that little bell to make sure you get notified every time we post a new episode. And now, enjoy the show. Welcome to the Diary of an Apartment Investor podcast. I'm your host, Brian Briscoe. Really excited for today's show. We got two great guys on the line with us. We got Sanjay Sharma and Arsenio Hart with us. So guys, welcome to the show today.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. And incidentally, Arsenio is dialing in from about halfway across the world today out of Okinawa, Japan. So thanks for doing that. I'm sure it's pretty early where you're at, but thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you again for the invitation. I was very excited to jump on.
Absolutely. And Sanjay, where are you at right now?
So I'm in Orange County, California. So I'm in Southern California.
Yeah, not too far. I'm Idaho. You know, I hail from Salt Lake, so not too far away. So anyway, Sanjay, we're going to start with you today. That's what we usually do. So do us a favor, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I'm a practicing doctor. I'm a hematologist oncologist out here in Southern California, in Orange County.
Okay.
I also have a medical education company, and I have this real estate private equity where our investors are typically physicians and high net worth executives.
Yeah.
So we search the country for deals that we find favorable that we can provide to our investors.
Nice. And I love the logo you have there. It looks like the infinity sign with a little bit of an uptick on the back, right?
Yeah. Idea keeps going up exponentially.
Yeah, exponential. Yeah, I love it. And I mean, that's the name of your company too. But yeah, full disclosure, I do have 2 degrees in math, so I am somewhat of a math nerd. But yeah, I saw that and I knew exactly what that play was. You know, infinity with an exponential attached to it. I think it's really cool. So
it's actually funny when I was coming up with my my logo. I asked my kids who were in calculus at the time. I was like, "All right, guys, I need to see some graphs. Graph this out for me."
Yeah. So did your kids actually come up with that logo?
No. I've got teenagers, so that conversation doesn't go too far or too long.
Yeah, I mean, I've got my 12-year-old. She is very artistic, so if you give her like an artistic challenge, I mean, she's the type that would have done it. But
that's cool.
Yeah, so I mean, depending on which kid and what age group, I think you're right though. Teenagers, they're the ones that are least likely to help out mom or dad with anything.
That's right.
But so yeah, well, cool. So physician, and I mean, you're reaching out to other physicians, high net worth investors and whatnot. So how long were you practicing as a physician when you started investing yourself, or did that come out the other way?
Right.
Yeah.
So I've been a doctor now. I've been in my practice for 18 years.
Okay.
So I've been a doctor since last century. We were talking off camera in terms of, do I remember Karate Kid? Of course I remember Karate Kid.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I graduated in last century in 99. So I started getting into, real estate has always piqued everyone's interest. It's not just me, it's everyone, right? I did my training in New York City. And I remember my uncle saying, "Why aren't you buying your apartment? Why aren't you buying this building?" And I thought that was the craziest thing ever. But I got into real estate through syndications as a limited partner on a building. This must have been about 13 years ago. I had no idea what I was doing, no clue. And so I put what I thought at that time was a lot of money. And it was, we've done fantastically well. In fact, we're still in it. And our returns are going to be up to 30%. Now, granted, it's 12 years later, but so that continued to roll. My wife's family, they're into real estate. I kind of grew up more conservative in the sense of money, that you just save your money. You don't invest money. So it's just all 401k. And I dabble a little bit more in real estate, did another syndication. And I remember I got a call from the sponsor and said, "Oh, you know what? We're going to exit early." And I was like, what does that mean? I was thinking, okay,
Yeah.
I've lost all my money. But no, it was a 70% return, like
Wow.
after like 12 months. So I was blown away.
Yeah.
And then we started doing our own active real estate investment. We bought a duplex. This was in Long Beach. And then at that time, I was more a bigger pocket listener as opposed to kind of doing action. And I was like, you know what? Let me figure out what I can do with this real estate property. And I was like, oh, it's got a garage and it's got plumbing in it.
Yeah.
And I was like, let's build an ADU, which was kind of crazy at that time. And then actually, I sold it to an active duty military, which was awesome for him, young family. He had a VA loan. I mean, it was just killer. I was so excited for him that he got a cash flowing triplex that's brand new because I redone everything. So
nice.
That young gentleman did fantastically well. Use that money, exchange into a triplex and a fourplex. This is all Southern California.
Yeah.
So just by utilizing, building on it, improving it, I mean, our rents double to triple.
Yeah.
If you're in the right neighborhoods.
I
did that. I 3x, 4x my money just kind of in a short time period.
Yeah.
And then I just wanted to get into syndications because I want to get into bigger and bigger things. And I also recognize that what my interests are is satisfied with bigger deals, with helping other people, with helping other physicians kind of reach the goals they're getting for. And so that's how I got into syndications after that.
I love it. Yeah, you're one of the brave few that is investing or has invested in Southern California. I think I've spent 9 years living in California and, Camp Pendleton area, Miramar Air Base. But, it's one of those things. I think everybody there is just always talking out of state. But I mean, I bought a property there right after the crash and it did extremely well too. So I think you're right. I mean, you mentioned rents go up a lot year over year there and prices go up like crazy, in some years. So there's still a lot of goodness to be had in Southern California.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. So now you've transitioned to where you're helping other people. So I assume you're investing your own money and you're bringing in friends and people that you find that are looking for the same types of deals now. How do you determine where you put your money?
Okay.
And where you put their money too. Yeah.
Right. Of course. Yeah. So good question, especially because you brought up the point of California, in which understandably, and the reason why you're talking about, I'm putting words in your mouth, but the reason why you're saying that California can be daunting to invest in is A, the price, and then B, this is not a landlord friendly area. So there's a lot of challenges, or at least I should say there's a lot of challenges when I talk to my colleagues outside of California in regards of managing tenants, managing laws, recognizing what's going on in the city and the town and how it can change quickly and drastically. I looked at it as an advantage. So I partnered with, for example, a property I had in LA. I partnered with grant supports, not Section 8, but grant supports for housing. And that worked both in the tenants' favor because they were getting access to really good properties. And I was having the advantage where they were the partner with me. So then I could, similar to Section 8, I can get guaranteed rent. I knew the tenant quality would be strong and supported. So you have to find, in Southern California, you have to find your niche. You have to recognize the cost that it takes to get in. But there's huge advantages once you understand it. Now, going back to your question, though, you were asking, well, how do you find where to go and what properties to go into? So I look for the sponsors. I look to partner with the sponsors, and it's a sponsor, and that's one thing I'm going to stress to you, Arsenio. It's the sponsor which makes the deal work. We were talking again offline about a deal that you're involved in. And again, it's who are the folks that are running the assets. You can, if you're on a ship, you can run a ship straight into a barge, or you can park it nicely and have drinks at a restaurant. You can manage it in two different ways. So that's my number one thing, is that I look for what I talk about, asymmetrical risk rewards. Most people think of the riskier you are, the bigger the rewards you get. I instead look for what is the safety of the deal. What about this deal ensures that there's going to be less likelihood of losing money, less likelihood of capital call, and then looking for that rewards. Can I 2x? Can I 1.5x a person's investments? And that's what I really look for.
Yeah. And interesting you say that. I think my philosophy has evolved over time. And I think part of it has been how I've seen other people act. But when I first started investing myself, I was looking to double up as quickly as possible. I think that's true of a lot of people, especially, people just on the bottom end of the wealth spectrum. But that's also one of the first questions that I start asking now is, what are the chances that I lose money on this deal? And
Mm-hmm.
if I can say the chances that I'm going to lose money are small, I'll keep on looking, but the first thing I look for now is, what's the downside risk and what are the factors in place for the downside protection? And I agree wholeheartedly, it's the sponsors 100%. And you're right.
Mm-hmm.
One person can drive a ship into the ground, another person can take the same ship and take you to wherever you want in the world. So.
And the other thing to consider is my colleagues, my investors, we're all physicians.
Yep.
So we are trained to be one of the most analytical people ever. I'm an oncologist. So when I'm talking to my patients about giving them anti-cancer treatment, I know the side effects. I know the toxicities. It's not that I'm just prescribing an antibiotic for a fever and a cold over the phone.
Yeah.
So I am naturally trained to look at both the positives and the negatives. And when I use the term risks and rewards, that is something I do on a daily basis. I see 25, 30 patients a day. That's a discussion I continue to have. And now I parlay that into the investment field and into the real estate field. And the investors, my colleagues, my partners who are joining me, we all think alike.
Yeah.
So we naturally are looking for as much data as possible, as opposed to I have to use metrics that are recognizable and understandable to define what that safety is.
Yeah. I like that analogy. I mean, I think it's one that I hadn't realized before, but when you start looking at oncology and chemotherapy, I mean, you're doing a lot of damage to somebody's body and hope for a better. So I think, wow, that's actually a really, really good example for risk versus reward. I might use that later, but yeah, I've always used the one, near and dear to my heart and Arsenio's heart as well, where, military, that's what we do all day, every day is we're looking at risks and we're looking at rewards as well. There's different type of risk, different type of reward in both situations. But yeah, it's one thing that is drilled into us from day one. But well, cool. Well, Sanjay, let's talk a little bit about one of the deals that you've been involved with. So pick your favorite one, your first one, your most recent one, and tell us a little bit about it.
I can pick an early one.
Okay.
It wasn't a syndication deal, but I liked it because I utilized several different techniques and tools to make it work. And in fact, I coined it on a LinkedIn post as calling it the Giving Tree by Shel Silverstein. And you'll see what I'm talking about. So that was a property that I exchanged into. And so I learned early on that exchange timetable causes a significant amount of stress. You got till a certain date at a certain time to figure out which properties you're going to possibly purchase. And then that's it. And then you got to close. So there's kind of that challenge. Secondly, it was when it came down to, and this starts getting into why it's called a giving tree. When it came down to negotiations about the property while we were in escrow, it was a matter of recognizing what is it that the seller needs? What is it that I need as an investor? And what is it that the tenant needs? Okay, so we'll start with the tenant first. The tenant needs a good, safe place, clean, functioning, working, beautiful place. The neighborhood needs the same thing. So I was looking for the building to give back to the tenant and the building to give back to the neighborhood. What did the seller need? The seller was ready to retire. And it was kind of cool. He had like these old Corvette in the back, this old Harley, like there's a bunch of stuff all over it, like in terms of boxes, all that kind of stuff. And like, what are these? He's like, I've toured around with cars, but I just haven't had the chance to kind of like sit down with my son and kind of do it. And I'm just ready to retire and go on. Okay. So what did he need in the deal? He needed a retirement. It wasn't necessarily that he needed a number. He needed a retirement. And then, so what did I need? I needed a building that met my metrics in terms of cash flow and value add. I always do value add. And then, so recognizing all three of those things led to a very amicable negotiations that happened very quickly and closed the deal.
Nice.
So then also recognizing LA with rent growth and the need for affordable housing, I partnered with a local organization, and their job was to help house people into units who otherwise could not afford LA housing. So I fixed up the buildings. I made them made them brand new, essentially ripped everything out and added bedrooms. So now instead of a 2-bedroom, a family had a 3-bedroom. Now instead of a 3-bedroom, a family had a 4-bedroom and 2 bathrooms and a garage. So again, the building is providing to the tenant, and I'm providing for the city, and the city is providing. That was the beauty about this building. And then lastly, I did exit this building. I hit the metrics that I wanted in terms of the profits. I got the equity that I was looking for, and a young family then could come in and purchase it.
Yeah.
And then they could get the metrics that they're looking for. So I find that kind of like the beauty of real estate. I mean, it's not only kind of meeting what all my needs are, my goals that I have in life and all that kind of stuff, but it just keeps giving and giving and giving back.
Yeah.
And I just find that very powerful.
I think that the best deals are the ones, and you're talking about like this perpetual win-win-win, how everyone involved wins. I think those are the best deals, is where you can work something out where everybody wins with the transaction, everybody wins with the deal. The investors win, the tenants win, everybody wins. I think those are the best deals, and those are the people I want to operate with as well. So I think anybody who's been in the business long enough knows the operators that you run super skinny, keep and try to maximize that NOI before selling, and it doesn't always work for the tenants in that case, so if you're not maintaining properties and whatnot. But anyway, I love that. I love the Giving Tree example too. That's a book we've got in the house too. But all right. So we talked a little bit about this before, we're shifting gears again slightly, but you mentioned a couple of reasons why you're investing, but if we can kind of deep dive on that one right now, what is your why?
Since we talked about ships, we'll use a ship analogy. There's a lighthouse, right? And that kind of guides you to your destination, no matter if you're veering off to the left, veering off to the right, or I don't know enough about nautical verbiage, but starboard and you guys know better than. Thank you. So I talk about several things. So I talk about like freedoms. What are the freedoms that I'm looking for? So there's financial freedom. I'm a doctor. So there's clearly a vitality freedom and a mindset freedom, something I talk with my patients, all the time. There's geographic freedom. Where can I provide the best for my investors, for my family, and for my patients geographically? And then there's time. So I've got that, I've got my vision laid out. I've got it printed out. Where am I 8 years from now, 9 years from now? What is it? What would someone say if I passed away 5 years from now, and kind of what I developed? There are certain charities that my family want to start and grow. I want a nation of physicians who have similar freedoms and leads them to practice better medicine. You as a patient, anyone as a patient, wants their doctor kind of focused upon their medical skills when they're in that moment. And giving that doctor mindset and vitality freedom allows them to do that. So I practice in Southern California. I would love it if Orange County was filled with physicians who were a part of this freedom, and it would just make everything better. So those are the things I want to see.
It makes a lot of sense. I mean, take a lot of the stressors out, and allows people to operate their full capacity. And I think that works for everybody. I definitely want to have a physician that's, operating at full capacity. That's cool. So, well, last question, and then we'll bring Arsenio on, but what's next for you?
So we are always actively looking for properties. So my team and I am actually growing. I'm actually looking for a new partner in exponential capital investment. So if anyone's out there and is interested and wants to meet, give me a shout out. So we're looking for properties. As as everyone knows, it's underwriting, or I should say the returns we are getting nowadays is different than we did 2-3 years from ago. So it just takes more time, more effort. And again, when we were talking earlier before coming on, you were talking about what are some of the different strategies in which you can get properties, and you talked about assumable loans. There's there's different techniques, there's different tactics. And so that's what my team and I discuss all the time. So
Yeah.
that's what's next. Take
Yeah.
down a few
I
more
love it.
properties this year.
Yeah. And right now, I think if a property has an assumable loan, that's one thing we are asking brokers on every property is,
For sure.
what does the debt, what's the current debt look like? And is it assumable? And, we've got a couple of properties that we've already acquired this year. And the Tulsa one we talked about, it's a 506C. So, we can talk about that one, but yeah, assumable loans. I think that's something that's near and dear to my heart right now. But
Yeah.
anyway, all right. Well, Arsenio, thanks for patiently waiting there. How's it going, man?
It's going, Brian. It's going again.
Awesome.
Excited to be.
Well, cool. And once again, thanks for dialing in from Okinawa, Japan, and thanks for your service. Active duty Marine, if I'm not mistaken.
That is correct. 14
Awesome.
years in. Yeah.
Yep. And that means what? 5 years left?
5 years left. 5 years.
6.
6. Technically.
Yep. Well, cool. Yeah, I remember being in that spot once upon a time. But anyway. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Arsenio Hart. I am a Marine, active duty, currently stationed in Japan. I've been over here, 6 years now? But I have a family of 5 kids,
Nice.
2 sets of twins. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's been very interesting over the last few years. So I got a set of boy and girl twins, and then I have a set of boy twins who are the boy and girl twins. They're 4 years old. My second set of twins, the boys there are 7 months, and then I have a 14-year-old. So
all right,
it's very lively in this house.
Yeah. That's a good spread. 14 down to So we've got a similar spread. So it's kind of fun sometimes. Yeah. So
definitely is.
Especially if the oldest one, likes the younger kids. You got your babysitter in house. But anyway. Well, cool.
She has a wonderful time taking care of them. It's a fun time.
Yeah. And I mean, not to talk too much, Marine Corps stuff, but we've got an 8-year gap between kid number 2 and number 3. And it was awesome for my wife. Well, not awesome, but it was very helpful for my wife when I was deployed to have, 2 teenage girls and 3 younger kids, because we had to babysit, we had to help. But I'll never say it was awesome for my wife to have me away for lots of reasons. But anyway,
she'd probably say otherwise, right?
Yeah, she said no, that's not awesome. But anyway, go ahead, keep talking about you. Don't let me interrupt you.
Absolutely. So I am from Tennessee. I grew up in a small town called Milan, Tennessee, not too far from Memphis. So most people don't know where Milan, Tennessee is, but a good amount of people know where Memphis is. So I just typically say, I'm from Memphis. But yes, from Milan, Tennessee, small town. And I joined the military I joined the Marine Corps when I was 19 years old. I sat out a year prior to joining the Marine Corps. I had always thought about joining the military, but not really until, I was sitting home, not doing anything. I'm from a small town, not much to go around. I always had, I think every young boy who plays sports always has those aspirations of joining or getting into like college, playing football, playing basketball, whatever the case may be. And then you come to that realization that you're not as talented as, some people.
As you think you are. Yeah.
Right. So that was a realization for me, and just, I wanted to ensure that I could take care of my family too. My mom and my sister, my younger sister and brother that was still in school, and just help my mom out. So I decided to join the military. Joining the Marine Corps, and again, it's just been a fun ride since then. Again, I joined to help my family. I also joined to travel the world. And as you can tell, I traveled all the way across the world, never went outside of the state. And it just it gave me opportunities. Not only did it give me opportunities, it let me meet my wife and have these beautiful young kids that are running around the house now. So I enjoy the Marine Corps, and thankful for what it has brought and the opportunities that have been brought across me. So
it was a good enough life and exciting enough that I spent 20 years doing it. But when I hit my 20-year mark, it was definitely the end. I mean, there was no second guessing. It was definitely time. So somebody told me a long time ago, how do you decide when you retire? He's like, you'll know is the answer. You'll know when it's time. But anyway, thanks for your service. And yeah, so that's awesome. So one question for you that everybody gets asked on the podcast, and that's, what is your big burning why? Why are you looking into apartments?
Let's go back to, when I was in the Marine Corps. I'll say I didn't know anything about finances or anything. Like, I didn't grow up in a household where finances was talked about. I didn't grow up in a household where anything about investing was talked about. It was always about saving money, having a good job, having a steady job, and getting a good job, work hard, and you'll be successful. So 12 years in the Marine Corps, I was given the opportunity to talk about investing, and TSP that's another military thing that we do as far as investing. But investing,
and for everybody else, the TSP is the military's version of a 401k is all it is.
Right.
So yeah.
So of course I opted into that to invest a little bit, but I didn't really know what was going on. It wasn't really taught to me. But the real estate investing was something that was brought up to me. And it was single family housing. And I bought my first single family house in Memphis, Tennessee while over here.
Nice.
And it started cash flowing, getting the tenant in after a couple months or so. So that made me realize, okay, I can do this. Like, if I can do this from all the way overseas, not even having to go to the house itself, and not even being boots on ground, or even just being there while overseas, I can do this 100%. So I wanted to learn more. So I started diving even deeper and reading Rich Dad Poor Dad, which everyone knows, that purple Bible that some people call it. That even expounded my mind even more. I wanted to learn more. I wanted to educate myself more. So I got into another deal where I'm a limited partner, and this one was a syndication. So I was like, I jumped in this pretty much right after my single family housing project. So I got into the limited partner deal, the syndication, and that's where the passive income started coming in. So I was like, I don't have to do nothing. I just have to give my money, and I'm getting money back in return for years along down the road, and not even having to do anything. So that's what made me get into syndication and wanting to do multifamily. The reason why multifamily is because I was taught that you can do the same thing with this multifamily units that you can do with the single family. It just takes more people that you trust, and a partnership, and actually due diligence, which you do your due diligence with any type of investment. But with the multifamily, you actually have a team, and you don't have to use your capital. You can use other people's capital. So that interested me even more, because then I started getting into like, who do I need to talk to? How do I get to point A to point B? How do I get into these multifamily things? So I went into active duty passive income, that group of military veterans and everything, all sorts of people, and they started educating me on the multifamily side of things. And again, I just kept looking for knowledge, and I ran into Amy Majori. She teaches private money investing, where you're not utilizing a bank, but you're utilizing people who act as the bank to give you capital to invest in other deals, invest in your projects that you deal with. And I also wanted to jump even more. So I started educating myself even more, and I jumped into Hunter Thompson's group, where it's Raised Masters, a lot of elite individuals in there, and a lot of information in there. And I have just been drinking through a fire hose since then. So now I'm at a point where, getting those high level individuals, those accredited investors, to invest in deals. And I've been seeing deals coming across me for the last couple of months, and I've just been wanting to jump on everything, but I haven't had that foundation yet. So that's where I'm at right now. So that may be a long way to apologize, but I just
One of the takeaways I had is, you're a lot better than I was, because I read Rich Dad Poor Dad for the first time. I was in Okinawa when I read it. I remember reading Cash Flow Quadrant on a slow boat between Okinawa and the Philippines, but I remember thinking, man, I can't do anything from Okinawa. And I waited until I moved to Southern California a couple of years later to buy my first property. So, I mean, good for you for, buying something from the other side of the world. That's, I think seven levels higher than I was able to think at the time. But awesome. Thanks for sharing that.
Absolutely.
Anyway, we're at the point where we need to get you asking questions now. So Arsenio, we got Sanjay on the line. What do you want to ask him?
Yes, Sanjay. I truly love the fact that you talked about giving, because that is one big thing of mine of what I want to do when I get this boat started. I was going to save this for the end, but I couldn't wait to ask you, what do you do as far as, like, I know you did the giving thing as far as like the setup for that, the family with the two rooms and 2 bathrooms and making it 3, making it 4. Well, I just want to see, what do you do to give back to, I know it's a lot you can take, but giving back is one of the big things of mine that I want to do when I potentially get to the point of a professional investor.
Yeah. So your question in terms of what I do in terms of giving back, I mean, so giving back can be defined in many different ways, right? So giving back is A, charities, right? So we all have our own particular interests. B, there's families, what you're giving. I'm just broadening the definition of giving. So is what can you give to your families? I mean, both you and Brian have, you have a team. You've got five children. You're supporting a lot of kids. So there's definitely giving there.
We're giving.
For me, that's right. And then for me, it's mentoring. I love listening to you talk. It's your enthusiasm. Enthusiasm is infectious. So I think there's a lot of giving in terms of mentoring and teaching. Brian is doing it through his podcast. I do it in terms of talking to investors, talking to younger physicians, talking to executives. I also have a medical education company. So I'm constantly, part of my giving is in terms of education and teaching. So I see all of that as giving. And then obviously there's personal charities that I want to grow in foundations.
Speaking of that, there's something you said, you said you want to eventually. I heard somebody say this, I think it was attributed to Jim Rohn, but the fact is, if you can't give $1 out of 10, you'll never be able to give 1 million out of 10 million, and the numbers may be different, but when you say giving back, I would say, everybody, wherever you're at, doesn't matter what level you're at, you can start giving back, and I do have a goal to eventually become a 6-figure giver. My goal is by 2024 to hit that 6-figure, charitable contributions every year. But, something I do is I try to look for opportunities, and it's one of these things where if you keep it on your mind, where can I give back? You'll see opportunities and you'll see things that's like, man, that's a really good cause, or that's something that I would really like somebody to help out. Now, obviously it helps if you have more money, but yeah, I think there's always things that you can do to give back. But for anybody who has aspirations to give lots of money to charity, I'd just say start now. Start with what you can, and as your income grows, as your net worth grows, your giving can grow accordingly.
Another question I had, and we'll get back into the real estate questions. So, as far as challenges that you have, so right now I have the challenge of nurturing and pulling in the crowd to invest in the deals that come across my desk. So the challenges that you have as far as like being a capital raiser, what are some of those challenges that you had? And would you like to share any wins that you had with those challenges?
Yes. So you were talking about challenges that a person can have in terms of capital raising, and you're relating it to kind of what you're seeing as some of your challenges when you talk about, hey, you know what? I need to gather people in terms of bringing them in as investors and then to invest in the deal. So, what I talked about before, the number one thing about a deal is not the deal. I don't believe in the saying that if you have a good deal, the money will come. I disagree with that. It is, who is the sponsor? What is the trust that the investors have in the sponsors? Arsenio, just by whom you are in terms of what you do for the military service, what you do for me and my family being in the military service, you have a particular credibility. And then amongst your own colleagues, you have a particular credibility because they know you and they care for you and they see the type of person that you have.
Yeah.
So now, in terms of capital raising, is how do you grow that sphere of people having the same influence upon yourself? You've told me yourself, you've already talked about it on this podcast and what you have done, which is unbelievably tremendous in terms of how you started out. And I'm assuming when you're talking about a TSP is just kind of an interview on a one-on-one to meeting person X and person Y and now being with Hunter Thompson. So you're growing that platform. By being on this podcast, you are growing that platform. Not that I'm particularly important, but I now know you, that I can vouch for you because I know kind of what your interests are. And that's what you're looking for. It's kind of organic growth. It becomes more difficult when you got a deadline. You're like, oh, son of a gun. I've got a 40 unit in Memphis and I got to raise $1 million by, the 30th of next month. Okay, now the clock is ticking. So everything you're doing, every moment in terms of who you are as a character, you're building your platform. For you, you want everyone to see this podcast. I'm going to broadcast this podcast to everyone so that you build your platform. So you were asking me, what are some of the challenges? So I talked about a lot of my investors who are physicians, they're very analytical. So they're going to question everything and they should. It is their money. They worked hard to get it and they should. So I've had investors who say, you know what, I'm going to invest this much with you because I want to see how it goes. And then I'll think about investing again. But the funny thing is, whenever they say that, I'm like, what does that mean? Okay, so if you invest in me to see how it goes, are you going to wait for 5 years until, I never voiced this, but I think about it in my head. I said, okay, are they going to wait for 5 years when we exit the deal? And it's typically not that. It's typically what I've seen with my repeat investors, kind of the comfort they have of letting go of their money. They already trust me. They already know me. I go over the deal. They're recognizing that I understand the deal. But it's almost like, okay, how does it feel to wire that much money? And then I've always seen that after that, it's easier for them. So I would say the challenges are growing the thought leadership platform and then creating that influence. I mean, there's always going to be, you talked about challenges. There's always going to be people who say they want to invest and at the end they don't. And then you've got this gap. That's just a given. That's just part of the industry.
Yeah. I would say my challenge, and it blends well with what Sanjay was talking about. I was looking for transactions, not for relationships. Okay. And the first time I was really trying to raise capital, I was in that situation where he was talking about, where I had a certain amount of time to raise a certain amount of money. And my biggest challenge up front is I was looking for transactions. And and looking for transactions in a timeline is probably the worst way to try to raise capital. But anyway, that was it. Well, real quick, we got time for one more quick question, one more quick answer before our time is up. So Arsenio, go.
I think this last question. All right. So market right now, everyone's skeptical. So, well, some people are skeptical. Some people are a little afraid to invest in some of the opportunities that's out there. How are you leveraging or speaking to your audience or speaking to your investors in some of these opportunities when they're a little fearful and don't know if they want to actually jump in because of the fear of the unknown, or just want to sit back and watch the market play itself out?
Yeah. So your question is how do you talk to investors about the market? You can also think about the opposite. Remember, there was a time where you're like, son of a gun, you know what? My neighbor just sold his house for an additional, tens of hundreds of thousands. Oh, wow. Did you see that guy? He did nothing. Or that person, man, there's a crypto billionaire. Things have kind of turned around, right? So it goes back to the investors know you and have the credibility and trust you because you're the one doing all that work in terms of looking at deal after deal after deal, recognizing what are the good deals, whereas an investor may not be doing that. And because that investor has that trust in you, you can show them the deal and then they can invest in you. That's how I look at it. There will be people, it is harder to raise capital now than it was before. Everyone will tell that to you. And everyone will also say there's a lot of money on the sideline. So either they're going to have a trust in you and invest in you because you're doing the work to find the deals and find the sponsors. Yeah. Two, maybe the markets will change and the kind of society will kind of relax on their negativities on real estate. But it should never stop you from keep looking.
Yeah, I agree. Now, I mean, something I always think about is, it's easy to look in the rearview mirror and know where the buying opportunities were. If I could, take a time machine back to 2010, man, I'd just buy everything, right? Because that's where the market was the lowest. But in 2010, that was, I bought my first property in 2007, my second property in 2008, and there was a lot of fear in the market. There was a lot of, oh my gosh, are rates going to keep on going? Is real estate ever going to recover? I think right now, I mean, what we've experienced in the last, year was not nearly as dramatic as the Great Recession. But I think right now is kind of the same feeling that I had in 2010, I was experiencing in 2010, where everybody was a little bit pessimistic about the market. Prices were depressed. It was hard to get loans. It was hard to get money. But I think looking back at today, I honestly think 5 years from now, when all the dust settles and we're looking back, I think most people are going to say, man, I wish I would have bought a lot more in 2023. And it may be that 2024 is when we scrape the bottom and start going back up. But anyway, I think that's about where we're at right now. And on the flip side, I'll just say, if you have a long enough perspective, if you're looking to invest long term, like Sanjay said, his first investment was, I think you said it's been a 12-year hold now. Is that right, yeah. Sanjay? Yeah. Yes. So I would just offer that, on a 12-year hold, it wouldn't matter if they purchased that property in 2007, 12-year time frame, they're going to outlast, whatever funk we're in right now. So my 2 cents. Anyway, we are out of time. So I guess that's the last 2 cents getting thrown out today. Last question for each of you. Sanjay, you get to go first. How can listeners learn more about you?
Yeah, so the best is I'm on LinkedIn every day. So find me, Sanjay Sharma, MD. You can also go to my website, www.xcapinvest, that's EXCAPINV.com. You can also email me directly, sanjay.sharma@excapinv.com. Perfect. And Arsenio, I expect to get a message from you. We're not done talking after this.
Absolutely. You got me, man. You got me.
All right. And Arsenio, same question for you. How can listeners learn more about you?
So yes, I'm on Facebook, I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm on Instagram. So awesome. Instagram, the handle is a little bit different. It's just the in front of Arsenio Hart. So the Arsenio Hart. And don't confuse me with Arsenio Hall. I know it's for those.
I was just going to say that. I mean, yeah, I mean, gosh, every time I still hear the name Arsenio, I'm like, dog pound is what I'm thinking. But anyway,
I'm holding back too.
Arsenio Hall. It's a year.
I said I'm holding back too. I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, Sanjay and I are roughly the same age. I mean, I graduated once in 99 too, but anyway, hey, thanks guys for coming today and showing up. Had a lot of fun. I hope you guys did too.
Thanks,
Absolutely.
Brian.
Thank you for the invitation. I appreciate it.
Hey, if you like that episode, make sure to subscribe. But more importantly, if you haven't joined our multifamily educational community yet, which we call the Tribe of Titans, you are missing out. Get 30 days free by clicking the link in the description to this episode, or go to thetribeoftitans.info, and we'll see you there.